the victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions, even in the absence of clear evidence, based on how I was seeing things, seeing myself. My reticular activating system was framing the whole thing as the failure of a lifetime, and I had the habitual thought process to back it up. I had the people to blame, the guy that shouldn't have kicked me that hard when we were just warming up. I had the villains, man. I had the villains, and then my final villain was my genetics, which was, I wish I was as good of an athlete as my father. Yeah, it compounded itself.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Mental Purpose Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Lobos. Today is fun. It's a lot of fun. The intro might have been a little long, and you saw the name of this podcast. It's the same tattoo I have on my arm. Language is everything. It creates everything. It creates our life. It creates the results of our life. It creates everything around us or takes from us. So today, my guest is Mark England. He's you know what? You ever meet somebody and you go, man, I'd love to just hang with this person. That's what I felt about Mark just from the very beginning. Like, this guy's got a really cool confidence, like a really cool attitude. He knows his stuff, and I'd love to hang with the guy, and I'll make that happen. I will absolutely make that happen. You know what's really cool is when his bio came over, I just thought, man, he knows Abracadabra. And I live my life by this. That's why I got it tattooed on me. Like, I live my life with these words, I will create limitless possibilities for my life and the lives of others. Our business model is created around that same concept, and it's become very successful. And I'm a huge proponent. So today we're going to talk all about language, the power of language. We're going to get Mark's story. We're going to get the victim mentality and how people just live their lives with these stories they tell themselves. Look, let's break this thing down into two components. There is whatever happened to you in your life, right? The events, the experiences you've had, the process you've gone through. And the other side of that is the story that you are weaving and telling yourself about that thing that happened. That's it. That's how your whole life is broken down. The results that you have for your life are based on the story you're telling yourself around something that happened to you. Your parents loved you or didn't love you. You did well in school, you didn't do well in school. You were the fat kid, the skinny kid. You got onto the football team, you didn't. You got the job, you didn't. You got into college, you did. Like, all those things, they add up. This episode is freaking long. It's like an hour, I don't know, 16 or something, or an hour 11. And I would suggest listening to this thing. It's an hour 16, 56 hours, 17 minutes. Listen to it. Break it up if you have to. It gets better as it goes. It gets more info and more info. And Mark and I pick up steam and pick up momentum as we go. So I'm going to read you Mark's bio. We're going to get rolling into this thing because it's long. Really quickly, if you haven't already, join our mental purpose community, join our Quitters Club. It's the Quitters Club community on Facebook. Tons of great stuff in there. Look, at the end of the day, what you've got to quit is you got to quit telling yourself the story that is keeping you in that motion and not having the results you want. That's what our Quitters Club will do for you. Want to come to a Quitters Club retreat? Join one of our masterminds. We will help you with a formula and a structure and a framework to get out of and quit the shit that's not serving you and build the life you truly want to build, the life you truly want to live. Yes, I'm passionate about it. Yes, that was a pitch. Get over it. You're going to learn a lot from this episode. I'm allowed to pitch you once. It's not a pitch either. It's enrollment. So here's the thing about Mark, and let's get rolling. Okay, Mark England is a TEDx speaker. He's the co-founder and head coach of Enlifted. He's been researching, coaching, and presenting on the power of words and stories for the past 15 years. Mark holds a master's degree in education and was an elementary school PE teacher before getting into personal development. There's a ton of fun facts about Mark. Like, he has a AK-47 collection, and he's been on 286, I think it's like 292 podcasts, and the guy's just awesome. Just listen, okay? Get into this thing. Love you. Love having you here. I just really appreciate all of your support and the emails and the DMs that you send. It means a lot. This is very fulfilling work for me and for Aaron and all the rest of our crew. And I feel very honored that I get to be on this mic every week with another great guest, influencing and impacting your life in some positive, powerful, and purposeful way. That is my mission in life, and I love it. So thank you for listening. Enjoy this episode. All right, second shot at this, buddy.
Let's do this.
here's here's what here's what just got me hooked on your one sheet right away. We were talking about the power of words, the power of language, the power of stories. And ironically, now that I see you in person, I just loved what it said on that. And I was like, I mean, this guy, now we could have a really good combo. And then I just told you, I remember why. It's because I have a tattoo of Abracadabra on my arm, and you pulled up your necklace that says Abracadabra on it. And we're bonding over that. So today, that's what we're going to do, man. Welcome to the Mental Purpose Podcast, and let's bring it.
Let's do this. Thanks for having me, Ian. Thanks everybody for
Course.
listening.
Of course. Yeah. Man, I'm so blessed to be able to just be a yenta on this mic and talk to cool ass people and have other people positively affected by it. It's such a blessing, honestly. As cheesy as that sounds, it really is. I wish for this. I wish for a couple things: to live in Southern California, to wear a t-shirt every day and jeans, and to just coach and host a podcast every day. That's what I wanted my life to be. And that's what my life is. And you know why? Because I set it into existence.
Dude. There's that's so I'm living down in Vilcabamba, Ecuador in 2012. It's this smallish, about 2,000 people mountain town uh, in the middle of the southern tip of the Andes Mountains in Ecuador. Good start to a story. And I'm out to
Yeah.
lunch with friends. And there's a guy. I tell this story a lot. I met him twice. Forgot his name. Doesn't matter. We're at lunch, and he goes. He knew the line of work I'm in. He goes, "Hey man, you know what abracadabra means?" And I'm mid bite, and I'm like, yeah, magic. He goes, no, there's a little more to it than that. And he said, abracadabra, y'all can look this up, it's true. Abracadabra is Aramaic, which is an old language. It's still spoken in parts of the Middle East today. It's the language the original Old Testament was written in, and it translates to with my word I create, or with my word I influence. He said that, and I got the hair on the arms, hair on the back of the neck. I got up, went over and sat next to him. I said, dude, tell me everything you know. And the teachers of the day would triangulate abracadabra and wear it around their neck to remind them of the power and the mechanism, the mechanics of words and stories, the power and the mechanism of language, because they knew that if they got their language working for them, then they could go on to do extraordinary things. And they knew that if their language was working against them, and which most people's language is working against them today, I say that definitively, personally and professionally. I say that definitively after working in this line of work somewhere between full time and overtime the whole time for the past 15 years, and I have a degree in education. So I stare at this stuff. I'm a geek, and I've been talking about abracadabra since.
Yeah.
I think it's the most well recognized word on the planet. Universally speaking, you can go damn near anywhere and say abracadabra, and
Yeah.
people have heard it and they go to magic.
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
sleeping giant.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
Yep. It's interesting because I was telling the story this week. Aaron and I were coaching a bunch of high level dudes in Gatlinburg, and somebody said, "What do your tattoos say?" And I said, "Well, the one just says limitless possibilities because uh, my dad just always used to say that to me, and I just wanted something that was a reminder that I'm the only person that limits me. The world can press on you as much as you want. Shit can happen to you. It doesn't mean that it passes through to the inside until you let it." And so then I had a coach who's very powerful, and she would always say two different phrases at the end of her sentence. One would be abracadabra, or she would go, and then we all die. And she would just coach like that. She'd stand up in front of like 50 people, and then she'd go, do it, don't do it, worry about it, don't worry about it, and then you die. It's your call. How do you want to live your life? Because you're gonna die. So in this moment, do you choose to go this way or this way? Either way, you'll die. That's the best part. Is you know that this inevitably happens, regardless of which way you choose. Inevitably, you will die. Not probably, inevitably. And then she would say something like, somebody would come up with a statement, and she would say, "Abracadabra." And nobody in this entire class, like 200 people throughout this 8-week course, I had to go to New York for this thing. Nobody asked her what that meant. And I saw she had it like tattooed like a snake around her arm. And one day I just went up to her and I said, "Jocelyn, what is this tattoo you have? And what the hell do you keep talking about abracadabra? Were you doing like same thing? We pulling rabbits out of a hat, or were you gonna bring a box out where you saw somebody in half?" And she's like, "Abracadabra is ancient Sumerian for with these words I create. Now go figure it out." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I started researching and looking it up, and I found the triangulation thing, and I thought, you know what? I think that with these words, I create limitless possibilities for myself. So I'm gonna get abracadabra tattooed on my arm, and that's how it came. Right? Just think about that.
When what's it? What was it? What's this woman's last name?
Oh man, put me on the spot, Jocelyn. While we're going, I'll figure
It'll
it out.
come to you.
I have an
It'll
email.
come
I
to you
have an
because
email
that's
from her.
cool, dude. That's
She's
super cool.
amazing. She is amazing. She was I'm going to tell you that she was the most effective coach that I have ever been coached by. And I'm a coach, and I'm a expert level, high level, big company coach. Like, I've created a lot of cool shit out of my coaching business and my coaching expertise. And she probably is Hermit. I'm gonna now you're gonna make me think about it.
It'll happen in 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Give us 10 minutes.
Um, so it's interesting because this concept, and I want to get into your story so people can understand where you've come
Sure,
from. Because
sure.
one thing I read on your one sheet that I love is that you have not had your name on a lease or a mortgage since 2002. And I
It's
think that's
true.
so cool, man. That's like my fantasy. I would just want to be out in the world exploring around. And I have 2 kids and a wife. So that's the path that I chose. And,
Sure.
one day I'll do it in a $1 million RV or something crazy. Cool.
I'm down for RV life. Yeah,
Right?
man. I moved overseas in 2002. Um, so a little bit of the Mark England backstory. Uh, I'm a Virginia boy, born and raised Richmond, Virginia. My father was a small businessman. He started in 1980, and he sold him a little under a year ago. So he was in business for himself for 41 years. Uh, a chain of convenience stores, Lucky Convenience Stores,
Hmm.
and so I grew up in that entrepreneurial spirit. And he was a big guy, athletic. He was from the most western state, not that most western county in Virginia, not that far from Gatlinburg,
Hmm.
probably 45 minutes max, maybe
Yeah.
maybe an hour. And he got a scholarship because he could run. He was a football player. And yeah, so I grew up uh, in on more middle upper class.
Okay.
Grew up on a golf course, had everything I wanted. It was a fun, very supportive childhood. There was some pressure, just because my father was my father, and my science teacher in the ninth grade, really liked the guy, Dick Overton, and he was also the wrestling coach. And I wasn't big enough to play football well. And he goes, you should come out for wrestling. And I was thinking to myself, I'll give that a shot. So I go out and I got a little knack for it. So I wrestled in high school, which led me to falling in love. I've fallen in love twice on site, Ian. First time was when I got choked for the first time in a jujitsu class in 1996. Okay, because wrestling, okay, cool. I pin you, you pin me, good enough. But choking someone, on the other hand, or taking uh, their arm in a wrong direction and having
Yeah.
them give up,
Yeah.
that was just another level of cool. And so I got obsessed, got hooked. Uh, had a handful of MMA fights in college, won a couple of state kickboxing titles, and in 2002 moved over to Bangkok, Thailand because I thought I was a tough guy. Well, I needed to be a tough guy. So
Yeah.
leading
Yeah.
into the pain points and um, the victim mentality. I remember like it was yesterday, dude. It happened twice in the fifth grade. A couple of fights broke out on the playground, and one of them, the first one was with Danny Potter and Michael Rios, and I ran the other way, dude. I ran the other way, and that haunted me for, well, up until I got into what we call story work, looking at our stories and
Yeah.
our language,
Why'd
and
that why did that why'd that haunt you? Just because you couldn't defend yourself or you couldn't, like,
I
you
was
got
scared. I
scared?
got scared. I got
Yeah.
scared, and I shouldn't be scared
Like any
because
normal person.
yeah, most people get scared about things for some time, and I just wanted to be like my dad, the biggest tough
Yeah.
guy around. And since that wasn't the case, and then another time, a kid at the roller skating rink, he tried to spit on me, and I walked up to him and I kicked him as hard as I could right in the leg. He was bigger, and that dude kicked me about 4 or 5 times harder and gave me a stiff dead leg, and I went back to my mom crying. So I had
Wow.
these two examples of me being a chicken shit, and that was in the back of my mind as I got a little bit older and started to mature. And I thought to myself, well, that's not going to happen again because I'm going to go on the offensive. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And you talk to any of my high school friends, I was, I made sure people were scared of me because
Interesting.
right. Because I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to be the nail anymore. So add on to that some decent training and some fights and things. And so the plan was move over to Thailand, be there for a year, polish up my Thai boxing skills, come back and go pro because all my friends were going pro or opening gyms. And 6 months in, I'm on the operating table having my second knee surgery.
Hmm.
Right,
Wow.
and I remember this like it was yesterday too. The doctor said, uh, he said, "Mark, your career as a fighter is over. You could become a very good swimmer." And I'm right, and I'm picturing swimming laps next to grandpa at the community pool. Not what I had in mind.
Right.
Darkness descended. It absolutely descended. And what was the insult to the injury is that, and it was a big deal at that time. I'd only had my passport for 2 years. Everybody in the fight community in Richmond, I had 3 going away parties. It was this big thing. And I used that fail as the final piece of damning evidence in the case that I had been making against myself secretly in the back of my mind for years, that I was not good enough, that there was something wrong with me, and I was somehow doomed to fail. And I
Yeah.
took that final piece of evidence. Say, look here, bro, you went for it, and you fell on your face massively. Here's the final piece of evidence that well, like I said, it's called Atellaphobia, the fear of
Yeah.
not being good enough. It's got a name. And I took that story and entrenched majorly a major victim mentality. So much so that I did not laugh for an entire year. I ended up living over there for 10 years. I lived in, it still sounds a little strange to say. And I lived in Thailand for a decade, 5 years in Bangkok as an elementary school sports teacher, and 5 years on an island in the Gulf of Thailand on the beach, living in a hut as a counselor at
Yeah.
a cleansing resort. A very, very interesting, cool gig.
That's super cool.
Uh, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
My commute was 200 yards on the beach
Love it.
because I was on the beach and the thing was on the beach, just right down there. Um,
I
second
want to
time I fell in. Go ahead.
I
Go
want
ahead.
to I want to go back. I want to go back to something real quick before we go too far in. So, I think what the audience is going to wonder is about the story with your dad and the story you were telling
Sure.
yourself that you'll never be good enough and like why. So I got into fights in elementary school and I never thought to myself, I never want that feeling again. Like
Hmm.
I'll never let anybody push me around again. Like I don't know why. I mean, I'm just giving you my experience, my
Yeah.
story.
Sure.
I never thought about that. I thought I won't be able to to get them physically. I can get them mentally and emotionally. So I learned mental and emotional manipulation. That was my jujitsu and wrestling, right? So it's I want to dive into that with you real quick because for the audience listening, somebody's like, "Hey, this story I needed to match up to my childhood and understand why I do the things I do and why I talk to my wife, how I talk to her, and my employees and myself." So let's dig, man. Let's dig into that because that's really important at this moment.
It was the interpretation. So it's
Yeah,
not the stories that get us, folks. It's
yeah,
the interpretation of the stories that we. It's not the stories. It's the meaning that we assign to the
right,
stories.
right.
And it took me 5 years to get out of high school. I was in a special needs class in the sixth grade. My grades were poor all the entire time I was in regular education. So I didn't have the luxury of. I knew I wasn't going to outsmart anybody, but I'm going to outcool you,
Yeah,
and I'm going to be more aggressive than you are. So
hmm,
those were my coping strategies,
yeah,
um, and and it worked ish uh, up until that about 2002 2003 when the when the record really scratched.
yeah. What's interesting though, and I want to go back to this for a second, is you say that additional piece of evidence when
Mm.
really the evidence is in the story and the context you're telling yourself, not necessarily in actual evidence, because evidentially this is just a part of the process of your life. And I want to really isolate that because for people listening, there's no failure. There's no breakdowns where you just go into off to an island and you just wait to die. Like there's none of that stuff. Failure and having another knee surgery and ending your career is just a part of Mark's life's process. My dad calls it your life experience. It's your experience, man. That's not like that guy or anybody else in the world. They have a completely different plan and experience than you. Everything you go through is meant to happen to you for this other thing to open up. So, at what point did you start to talk to yourself and change that narrative or that story around the context that you're just washed up and now it's over and
I did use those words, washed up.
Sure, sure.
Uh, uh, and I didn't have that piece of. I didn't have that level of wisdom.
Yeah,
I was just straight running a hardcore victim mentality. I mean, I've said it twice. Might as well recite the definition. I'll take a
please.
little bit out of the middle. This is the verbatim definition of the victim mentality. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. That's an important part of this definition for our conversation currently. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So, like I said, a little bit out of the middle. That's the verbatim definition. That the last part of that first sentence, even in the absence of clear evidence. So, based on how I was seeing things, seeing myself, um, uh, I was my reticular activating system was framing the whole thing as the failure of a lifetime, and
Mm.
I had the habitual thought process to back it up. I had the people to blame, the guy that shouldn't have kicked me that hard when we were just warming
Oh,
up.
yeah.
I had the villains, man. I had the villains, and then my final villain was just our my genetics, which was, I wish I was as good of an athlete as my father. Um, and yeah, it compounded itself. When did the self start? When did the self talk um, shift? Well, uh, an enlightened poop changed my life, man. If we can talk
All right.
about that,
Well, dude, you can talk about anything you want.
right
Use
on.
whatever language you want. Let's
All
go.
right, drop an F bomb, maybe an enlightened
No
doo doo.
problem.
So I'm sucking at the game of life. I'm miserable.
How
I'm
old
not
were you, by the way?
45.
No, how old were you?
Oh, 45. Then 26, 26,
Got it. Okay.
27.
I want to paint that context for anybody that's like 29, like I was, and had a very successful career in my 20s and then lost my ass at 29 and think, fuck, what the hell, man? It's just a part of your story. So sorry, go keep going.
All good, man. So after a year of not laughing, I'm over it. I'm over myself, and I did. I was able to identify, dude. The if you keep, are you going to be complaining about this when you're 55?
Yeah.
And if you are, if you do that, then you really will be the loser that you're afraid of being
Hmm.
currently, right now. So I was an elementary school sports teacher, like I said, at an international school in Bangkok. American curriculum, American calendar, super fun. And our vice principal had come back from this cleansing resort, this detox resort on the island of Koh Samui, the place that I referenced earlier. It's called the Spa. And he goes, "Hey, man, I just went down there and did this 3-day liver cleanse, and there was a bunch of yoga and qigong, and everybody's talking about organic food, and I think you'd really like it." And I thought about and I was like, yeah, that I would give that a try. And he hands me a book called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity by Daniel Reed. And he goes,
Hmm.
they have formulated the process that they put people through based on this book. Okay, the owner and the guy that wrote this book, Daniel Reed, they're friends. So I'm over at the pool, and so's Paul Marks, the guy that did the middle school sports, and it's free swim. And I'm thumbing through this book, and it's talking about diet based on traditional Chinese medicine. And what hooked me actually was the first paragraph where it talked about the difference between traditional Chinese medicine and the current Western medical model, as
Yeah.
in, uh, you would pay the doctor while you were healthy. And when you got sick with anything, that's when he stopped getting paid.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to
That's
myself,
really
my
interesting.
simple person, me, Mr. Simple over here, I'm like, well, that actually makes sense.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it?
So, right?
You're paying
And
a
so
doctor
there,
to keep you healthy. Like actually,
yeah,
I've never heard of that. That makes perfect sense.
that's what the entire traditional Chinese medical model is built upon.
Yeah.
And they stop getting paid when you're sick. Imagine that. So guess what? They're going to do their best to get you healthy and keep you there. So I've thumbed through this book, and they're talking about diet and exercise and sleeping hygiene, even though they weren't calling it that. And they're meditation and acupuncture and energy, meridian line network, and Taoist sexual practices and pooping.
Hmm.
And they showed someone sitting on on a Western toilet, and how the alignment is not there, and
Yeah.
all the things that happen because of that. And then they showed somebody squatting, and how that's the alignment was, it was, everything was where it's supposed to be, and then you're going to take great poops. And I'm thinking to myself, well, guess what? I've got to take a poop. So I go in to the bathroom. I tell Paul, watch the kids. I go in, squat down on the toilet, and take an amazing shit.
So
One of the
put your
best.
feet up on the bowl.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. You
I'm
squat
trying this
down,
today. I'm making a new commitment. I'm trying
dude.
this shit today. My
Dude,
wife's gonna
look.
walk in and be like, "The fuck are you
What are you?
doing?"
I was talking to this weird guy from Virginia, and yeah, for sure. And look it up. There's a lot of
I'm
literature
gonna
on this
order that.
squatting. Squatty potty.
Yeah.
If that's it's about $15 piece of plastic that
Yep.
so you don't have to squat totally, but it brings your feet up and it just
Yeah.
feels good. Dude, I took a monster shit, completely
Complete
empty,
elimination. Yeah.
complete elimination. I
Yep.
stood up and took this huge big breath in for the first time, and it had been a long time because the victim mentality, that's another way of saying you're in a stress response, and if you're in a stress response, your breath is in your chest, and if your breath is in your chest, then I mean, if it gets there and stays there, you're not going to like it
No.
for umpteen reasons. Anyway, big breath in. Everything looked brighter. I said, dude, I'm going. That's all I needed. So I went
Love it.
down there, did a cleanse, 7-day cleanse, pay to not eat. Great gig. And, right. And I kept
Yeah.
going back, man. My third time down there. So this is a story and a specific answer to your question. When did the dialogue change? So third trip down there, I went and watched. I laughed at the name. There was this guy doing an emotional detoxification workshop, and me and all my quote unquote wisdom, I'm like, emotional detoxification. I went though. Thank God I did, and I watched this guy, Barry Musgrave, who is in 2003, who ended up being my first mentor. He talked about words, and he talked about stories, and he talked about identity, talked about breathing, stress states. And then he asked, does anyone have anyone caught up in a story? You're not liking it? And this woman shot her hand up, and it was a legit stinger of a breakup. This would have hurt anyone. He had her tell it 3 times. First time, the gist of the story is her and all her friends get a house down at the beach for a week. All her boyfriends and his friends get the house next door at the beach for a week. You can see where this goes. Add
Mhm.
alcohol, press play. You've got
Yep.
a TV show. You got a circus.
Yep.
And one of those nights, he hooks up with her best friend in front of everybody,
Oh boy.
and then and then it gets worse, and then dumps her the next night in front of everybody. Can we all say ouch on three?
Yeah.
And like I said, 3 times, played it through. First time, she's crying. He just let her go, crying, angry. She was just a lot of heat in the face, taking the whole thing super personal.
Sure, of course.
Second time, of course,
Yeah.
of course,
I'm not lovable. I'm a loser. I'm not sexy. Oh yeah, of course.
like the greatest, the not so greatest hits. Uh, Second time through, he said, tell the story again. And he had her slow it down a little bit, and he started tinkering with some of the language.
Yeah.
It's a couple of the key words. And now she's sad, no tears. Third run through, he stopped her at the Lord of the Rings sentence, which was the one that was holding the whole thing together, forcing her to make the victim villain mental imagery and take it personal all at the same time. Lovely stuff. And that sentence was, he did that to me.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And he had to repeat it. He did that to me. He looked out in the crowd. Did everybody hear what she just said? And he said it again for effect. So 3 he did that to me. And he said that last word, take that out and put in himself. And she had to think about it because it was such a radical departure from
Sure.
the story that she had been telling herself the whole
Yeah.
time.
That narrative. Yep.
And it was clunky, and it went up at the end with some up talk. He did that to himself, and then it
Yeah.
catches.
Clue. Yep.
The breath releases, and then she talks herself into that and and a very different angle on the story. He did do that to himself, and she's not even in the room anymore. She's just looking around in her imagination,
I
and
love it.
she starts, right, and she and and finally she goes, that was never going to work out anyway. The guy was actually pretty weird. And she'd been chewing on that thing for 4 years. And I saw that and I said, that's not my story, but that's my story. And I'm very, to use some cheesy words, beyond grateful for this work, because I was half of it was I was just bored, right? The other half is
Yeah,
I don't want to sit in a chair
of
as a
course.
child for hours on end. I mean, news flash. What kid wants to do that, right? So couple that with boring content, and
Yeah.
I'm a monster.
Are you also the guy that had to be like when Mark walks into a room, people are like, not fucking with that guy. Like your energy rolls into a room first, and you are always right, and you are always the guy that knows something, or like like that's your identity. Was that what it was before that?
Pretty damn close. Yeah, I had this
Yeah.
big ass 1993 Jeep Sahara Wrangler, jacked up, huge tires, cut the
Over
exhaust
there?
pipe off it. No, in
Oh,
high
here.
school.
Yeah.
I started to mellow up once I moved overseas. It also helped because I knew that no matter how, and I knew this going over there, I just didn't want to admit it to myself. No matter how good I get over there, these Muay Thai boxers from Thailand will whip that ass, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll always be low low food chain over
Yeah.
there. I mean, because these guys start when they're 5
Right. Or younger. Yeah.
or younger, and they
Yeah.
never tell
They'll
you
whip
their
your ass at
age.
6. Yeah. They'll
They
whip your
just
ass at
show
6.
you. They just show you how high, how tall they were when they started training, and what
Right.
that entails. It's not going to karate 3 times a week. It's they go live at the gym, train, as in leave their home, train twice a
Right.
day, and have 1 day off. And they do that from 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8 till
Yeah.
early 20s. So it's not. It's like,
What
and
was
there's some dangerous motherfuckers over there, bro.
Yeah, I'm
Like
sure.
not
It
just the
it's
Thai,
their
like
life. It like their
yeah.
life's on the line. Whereas your perceived life on the line. Let me ask you something. What was your statement? Your My identity stay safe with this statement. And I'm saying this because I want the audience to really pick this out. I have an idea of what your statement is because I'm going to tell you mine as well. What was your statement that you walked into a room or driving the Jeep or even going overseas? What was the statement that like about it now? It was probably unconscious though, or if it were conscious, it came out. Let me give you a context. Let me give you a
Sure.
context.
Yeah.
So I had Jocelyn Herman Sacchio, by the way. That's her name.
What a great name.
Jocelyn Herman Sacchio. One of the greatest coaches I've ever had. I mean, she
Oh, her.
was
Okay.
so
Yeah.
fucking good. The girl from Landmark in New York.
Yep.
Yep. So further on in my coaching, this is 2017. Somebody says to me, "What's your power phrase?" And I said, "I don't. What are you talking about?" And they said, "What do you tell yourself to keep yourself um, keeping moving forward, or safe, or just to blow something off because you need to move on because you can't care about stuff too much?" And I said, "Oh." I thought about it for a while, and I said, "Oh yeah, my power statement would be, fuck it, it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out. Fuck that, whatever. You can't figure it out. I'll figure it out." Because I had to remain in power. And kind of like that guy did to that girl, replace these pieces in the sentence.
Hmm.
He had me say this, fuck it doesn't matter, 100 times in front of a group of 35 people. This was a high level coaching. So all these people knew some shit and they were judging the hell out of me. And I was feeling their judgment. It was ripping my skin off. And 50 times in, he goes, "Now go another 50." And I go another 50. And he says, "Now point at me and say, fuck it doesn't matter." Pointing at me. And I said, "Fuck it doesn't matter. Like, fuck it doesn't matter." And he goes, 50 times, 50 times. And he goes, "Now point at you and say, I don't matter." And I fucking broke down. I lost it, dude. I absolutely lost it. That guy knew exactly what he was doing. Neil, he got me wide open. And he goes, "For your entire life, every time you say, fuck it doesn't matter, you're saying, I don't matter. I'm not good enough. I can't figure this out. Like, I'm not going to let somebody show me anything, I'm going to get out of here. Or I'm going to figure it out so nobody can get something over top of me. And that's what my power statement was. So I'm like, I'm really curious as to what your power statement was with that context that you were protecting yourself with.
Before I moved to Thailand,
Yeah,
I was obsessed with being the cool guy, man. I was obsessed with being the cool guy. I thought about that shit all day, every day. And anybody thinks about something that they want to become that much, it's a compensation. I was scared of being a dork or unpopular or uh, laughed at. Any of those things were enough to, like, use your words, rip my skin off.
sure.
So I'm gonna get ahead of that.
Yeah, I was like, nobody's getting through this. Nobody's getting through this exterior here, man. Nobody's getting through. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I say that because I had a friend who was so similar to you, like exuding confidence. Like you walk into a room and you're like, that fucking guy, that guy knows his shit. He knows everything about everything right now. I just know it. And you inside you're like, oh, I hope the room likes me. I hope they don't see through this shit. You know what I mean? Like I've been in rooms like that where I'm thinking, I hope they don't see the fraud that I am. Oh my God. If they find out, I'm gonna melt into the ground. So I want to point that out for the audience because although you and I talked this great game, like where we came from was levels of insecurity that everybody feels like to a certain degree, and fear and
For
pain,
sure.
and so I want to make this really, really solid argument that you and I are not brandishing the words abracadabra because we thought it looked cool and when we were on vacation in Mexico. Like we're rolling with this understanding because it could be life altering if you allow it to be. The
It's the
words that you
most
talk to yourself and to out, it will change your whole world. I literally, my life is the result of what I started speaking 6 years ago into the universe, and the way I spoke it, and the words I eliminated from my vocabulary and would never speak again. And sometimes they come out because we're human and we've been programmed, and I catch them very quickly and move them.
gun to head, not even gun to head. It's the most important thing I've ever learned. It's the most
Yeah,
important
I agree.
skill I've ever developed is to pay attention to my language, my internal dialogue and my external dialogue, what I think, what I say, and what I write. And I'll speak confidently about people coming up in the public school system. So I came up in the public school system, and like I said, I've got a degree in education. On neither side of that fence did I have one course, class, or conversation on how my language influenced me for better and for
Sure,
worse, or
sure.
how to use my words to stay focused on what's important, keep the drama low, build myself up in my imagination instead of creating this loser and then trying to spray paint a turd, as we say in the South.
Right. I get that. I totally get that. I mean, a victim mentality technically is all in the words in the story that you're telling yourself about what happened. Like I literally from that woman, that's the first time I ever learned that the story that I'm telling myself based on something that happened in my life or an event or something that took place in front of me is all up to me. Audience, I'm talking to you. Don't take that lightly. Don't take that lightly because what happened to you simply happened. And the story you tell yourself is the story you tell yourself, and it is changing the trajectory of your life literally moment by moment as you perpetuate that story, as you continue to tell yourself that story, whether it's I'm not good enough, or I was never smart enough, or I couldn't get into that college, my parents don't like me, or they're disappointed, or that girl broke up, whatever it is. Whatever happened, and the story you subsequently tell yourself is what your life is the result of. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Very much so. And
Yeah.
and those statements, those belief systems, which is a expensive word for opinion, ideas, those aren't facts. You know, if we take a look at Webster's definition of identity, so the fact of being who or what a person is, I dispelled this quite easily in a presentation we gave once upon a time. I asked the audience, "Do you see yourself differently in any way now than when you were 5?" And it's such a ludicrous question that it just immediately elicited a, a round of laughter. And our identity, the main drivers, like you mentioned, those statements, those aren't facts. I'm not going to find nothing ever works out for me on the periodic table of elements, or you can't trust women is not a unit of measurement, right?
No.
Those are opinions, folks, and those are ideas, and people change their mind all the time. And uh, I'll say it again, gun to head, the fastest. Those are spells. Those are spells by definition. Webster's, not mine. Webster's definition of a spell is a word or a combination of words of great influence. That's it. And it goes both ways. They can be constrictive spells or they can be expansive spells. I can do this quick. I got a couple good stories
Please,
about
please.
a constrictive spell and an expansive spell. This is a while ago. This woman walks in and she was very forthcoming. She sat down, very self aware, sat down, said, "I'm struggling in my marriage. My husband thinks I'm attractive. I refuse to believe him. I know where it's coming from. I just don't know what to do about it." And I said, "Tell me more." Oh, by the way, we wrote this story down. First things first. Let's get the damn thing on paper. Make it easy
Yeah.
on everybody. So here's the backstory. She she's 10 years old. She walks into her grandmother's kitchen in the back. Parents, they pull up for Christmas. They walk in the back door in the kitchen. As soon as she gets in the door, her great aunt is standing right there and goes, "Ma, you have a big nose, just like me.
Hmm.
I put a spell on you."
Jacked her up. Jacked her
Little
up.
girl locked her up, ran into the bathroom. What do you think the first thing she looked at when she got in her nose, which of course is no bigger then than it was 5 seconds ago, but in her imagination, she's got a honker. And so her reticular activating system, her RAS, it's the thing that finds things and edits things out. We can talk about that if you want.
Hmm.
I'm sure your audience likely knows about it because I know
Well,
you know
actually,
about
you
it.
know what? Let's tell them real quick what the RAS is.
It's the thing that you buy a car and you start seeing that car all over the place. You're like, where the
Yeah.
hell are these cars coming from? That's the reticular activating system. It's the you all of a sudden you hear a noise and it's annoying and now you can't stop hearing it.
Yeah.
That's the reticular activating system. Someone tells you something surprisingly good about someone and it changes how they look in your imagination, and then the
Yeah.
next time you walk into a party and you see them in your extra hat, that's the reticular activating system. So it has a search function, it's got an edit function. If you want a great book on that, and The Invisible Gorilla, that's the most popular social psychological study done on the reticular activating system. So it has a search function, it's got an edit function. So when you buy the Subaru Forester, and when you start seeing Subaru Foresters out and about, that's the search function. While it's finding more of those Subarus, it's editing out blue vans and red Volkswagen Beetles because it's not the thing you're looking for. Confirmation bias. Look that up. And so she she looks in the mirror, deems herself ugly. The reticular act, and it's impartial. It'll do whatever you want, whatever it's programmed to do. Oh, okay, you're ugly. Great. I'm going to go find all the other flaws and any contrary information. I'm going to edit that out. Just,
Yeah.
just pimp hand it right out of the way. So you can
Yep.
see how this would happen. Her husband's like, "Damn, baby, you look good," and she's like, "You don't really mean that.
You're just
That's
trying to
going to
make
get in
me
the way,
feel better. Yeah. You're just trying to make me feel.
dude."
Yeah.
So that's You have a big nose just like me. That's a combination of words that greatly influenced her. That's the by definition of spell. Okay. And it's to get it's constrictive. It creates the density. It takes up the mental imagery, activates the traps the breath in the chest, and then the thing really gets going. Fortunately, there's another side of the street, and this I thought this to share this story when you mentioned what your dad used to tell you.
Yeah.
So 2014, I'm giving a presentation. This guy's setting up a booth right next to me. I'm done. He comes up. He says, "Hey, man, that was a great talk. You want to hear a cool story about that?" And who says no to that, by the way? Cool stories? No, keep those away. Uh, and he goes, I, I, I forget how old I was, maybe 11, maybe 12. My grandfather took me out in the backyard. And I forget the guy's name, little Davy. We'll call him Dave. David, I guess, little Davy. His grandfather goes, "Little Davy, life's wild. There's going to be twists and turns and zigs and zags and ups and downs, and you're going to get some things right. You're going to get some things wrong. Just always remember to err on the side of being a badass motherfucker."
Wow.
And he said, Grandpa dropped an F bomb on him. He said, "In that moment, my life changed." He said, "I looked up, things are looking up, and he said, I saw myself in my imagination as capable, and I felt confident. I felt bigger, like I actually grew." And
Yeah.
he said, uh, I've made a lot of mistakes and I've also gotten a lot of stuff right. I go after what I want and I like being me." And I thought to myself, well, you know what? There it is, right there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. Simple shit. And that's a good example of an expansive spell. So we're spelling on
Yeah.
ourselves a lot, and when the more we learn about what words to use less of and why, and what words to use more of and why, and that our identity, it's not a fact, it's not the fact of being who or what a person is. Our identity, it's an ongoing, fluid, flexible process, and we're participating in that. Most people's language, it tricks people into being innocent bystanders in their life. It tricks them to being in the a spectator in the stands. Nah, man, you want to get in the arena, you want to take some losses, you want to get some wins, you want to go out of here, because guess what? Your girl is right. Nobody's
Yeah.
getting out alive. That right there says memento mori, which means remember you will die. This is
Yeah.
not the trial run, folks. We're in the middle of it. And you want to go out with some good stories. You want to share some good stories. Um, have an adventure, man. Talk about a word that's most people are deficient in their language. Um,
Adventure.
Adventure, dude. Become
You know
more
what's
adventurous person. Yeah.
you know what's really interesting is like the amount of spells that are all around you all the time every day. And I want to
Yeah.
point that out because it's not just what your grandfather says to you when you're younger or what my mom when I was 29, I was getting my real estate license. Fuck, that was 10 years ago. Crazy. And my mom, just to protect me, right, said, "Hey, I don't know if that's such a good idea. You're not really that good at math, and you're not a good test taker, so it's probably not the right. It's not the right world for you." And instantly, my brain was like, "Oh, she might be right." And then the defiant side of my brain went, "Well, I'll fucking show her." And that's luckily the one that won. However, think about it: mom and dad, public school, any school really, um, church, marketing and advertising, social media feeds, other people's idea of bullshit going on. There are programs and spells that it's like a witch's brew. It's all around us all the time. You have got to be in control of what you allow in and what you allow out and how you talk. And this weekend or this week, we called it a week front. When I was in Gatlinburg, we because we usually do weekend retreats Thursday through Sunday or Thursday through Monday, and
Mm-hmm.
this one was a Sunday through Thursday, so we called it a week front. So at this week front, I was saying to people, I'm very particular with who gets my time and my mind share. And so they were asking me like, what specifically? And I said, well, on Wednesday when I got my haircut before I came down here, like I'm very specific. When I moved to Los Angeles, I was trying to find a barber, and I want to make sure that the hour I sit in this guy's chair, I'm not getting spells and programs from some loser. You know what I mean? Let's not play games.
Let's not
I'm
mince
sitting
words.
in a chair for an hour. If this guy wants to talk to me about reality shows and court TV and what's going on with Johnny Depp and his bullshit, I don't want my mind share being taken up by that. If I'm in control of it, I'm going to be in control of it. And so I created this dating profile, which I create dating profiles for everything. It's not what you think it is. And if you want to know what a dating profile is in our world, go to our mental purpose community. We give one away for free, by the way, audience. And I met this dude, and within the first 5 minutes, the guy goes, "Bro, have you got any good personal development podcasts that you'd recommend to me?"
Yeah,
And
mine.
I look at him and I go, I I have a personal development podcast for men. And he goes, "Sick. I will download it right now." Pulled his phone out, downloaded it, and we started talking about personal development. This kid does not play. Harold, shout out to you, brother. I know you're going to be listening to this. Like, this kid does not play. That's just a small example of how I'm watching what I'm giving my mind share to, and I'm understanding of the environment that I'm subjecting myself to with the type of spells that will be around me. That shit is everywhere. Let's put this out there. Let's see if you agree to this or with this. If you don't have the results you want in your life, it's because of the stories that you're telling yourself and that you're allowing to just ruminate.
Look there first,
Look there first.
definitively.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's other aspects after that for sure. They will hinder
Look
you
there
from taking
first
action.
and second.
Yeah, they will hinder you from taking the action. They'll hinder you from making the decision. They'll hinder you from whatever. That is primary. That's primary. And it's crazy. It's just words. It's just a story, and it's freaking made up.
Squiggles and sounds, man.
Yeah, it's wild. It's
They
really
they
wild.
they run it. Uh, want to play a language game?
Please.
Your audience is mostly men or all men.
It's
I would
actually
imagine.
65% women.
Interesting. Really
Yeah. Yeah. This is not
cool.
for men. This is just me interviewing other men about their stories and their way they got through their shit and how they became successful. And by the way, success isn't money only. It's 100 different aspects and measurements. So I want to make that real clear to everybody.
Cool.
It's not just money. I'm not talking to Mark because he's worth $50 million, which I don't know if you are worth 50 million. Even if you were or weren't, it doesn't matter. I'm talking to you because of language, not your financial status. I don't care about
Sure.
that shit. Yeah.
Sure. So I was thinking about your based on the name of your show, Men on Purpose, and uh, uh, we play. We've done a couple of. I'll give us some credit for a couple of things we've done well within Lifted. So we have we've done a good job of demystifying the conversation about stories, words, and stories and identity, and also gamifying it. So we got a lot of
Hmm.
language games that we play.
Love it.
And turns out when people like playing games, and
Yeah.
when they're having a little bit of fun with something, it makes it easier to learn. I mean, wow, what an interesting.
What a
So here's a
concept.
language game. It's rocket science. Here's a language game that will tie a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about so far together and be um, relevant and relatable to your audience, because I would imagine that the women listening to this know some men, and some of those men are fathers. So the sentence is, how many times have you heard this, Ian? I just want to be a good father.
Hmm. Way too much. Way too much.
I just want to be a good father. You got a pen. Write
Mhm.
that down. So we'll take it one word at a time. I've heard that a lot, man, and most of the time when I'm hearing it, it's got a pleading, self-deprecating energy to it, and people,
It's
men men
victimy. It's
men
victimy.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Men beat themselves on the head. I
Yeah.
just want to be a good father. Okay. So we're going to play the one word game, folks. We're going to take some words out one at a time, put some words in, and see what happens. Okay. So take your pen, your magic wand, Ian, and scratch out the word just. And if y'all are listening and negation knowledge, not driving, you got a pen and piece, write this sentence down, because a lot of times you'll feel this stuff. And as the old saying goes, he who feels it knows it, or she who feels it knows it. And if you're a woman listening to this, and you take out father and put in mother. So
Fair.
we wrote that. He scratched out the word just. Now what do we got?
I want to be a good father.
What happened when we took out the word just for you?
Well, it opens up possibilities. The word just, I feel, is a limiting word to a specific instance or a specific situation.
Yeah, it's drama
Yeah.
language.
Yep.
Just. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. So we've got, I want to be a good father, which technically it's called a presupposition. And one of the reasons, or a faux positive, I want to be a good father presupposes that I'm not,
Hmm.
because I want to be that. And so if I want to be that, then I'm not that. So
Like
there's
react.
there's the self
Huh.
deprecation there. And also, good is a rough metric.
Yep.
Turns out it's a rough metric. So scratch out the word good and put in fun.
Okay.
Now read that.
I want to be a fun father.
Which do you prefer? Fun, good, or fun?
Fun. Well, good
Me
has no
too.
context. Good is granted. Fun has different context to it too. However, good is mediocre at best, and it has no upside. Fun has, well, we can play in the backyard or we can go bungee jumping. Like fun has levels. Good really doesn't have a level.
Dude, we're so on the same page. Fun. You can get fun on the calendar. It's hard to get good on the
Yeah.
calendar. Everybody knows when they're having fun, right? And
Yeah.
what I've found is, and so I have two nieces. I don't have any children. What I decided early on is I'm going to teach these two little ninjas kickboxing from the right from the go, and I'm also going to be fun. We're going to go do fun things.
Yeah.
And what I've found is that having something specific, the 10-year-old, she's about to get her black belt. The both of them, this might sound strange, but they both started when they were 6 months old. As in, I
Wow.
would put them on my lap, their heads bobbing around, they have no idea what's going on, and I'd take their hand and I'd just go like this on my hand. And I did that so they would not know when they started.
Hmm.
So they would say, "Well, I've just been doing this my whole life."
Yep.
And the 18-year-old, so we get together. We've got a skill that we can practice, and then we go to the arcade, okay, or we go play laser tag, or we watch UFCs together. They have a favorite fighter, Valentina Shevchenko, one of my favorite fighters too.
Yep.
Uzbekistan bitch. That bitch is badass. Anyway, you can get fun on the calendar. So we went from, let's backtrack a little bit, or review. I just want to be a good father, or I just want to be a good mother, to I want to be a good father, to I want to be a fun father. Now put the word more in front of fun.
Got it. I want to be a more fun father. Well, it's specificity now.
Specificity. And let's keep going. Put the word even in front of more.
Now you're giving yourself credit for what you've
Thank you.
already done and you're
Nailed it.
leveling up.
Nailed it. Of
Yeah.
course. That's the whole point. You can use your words to, in the reticular activating system, I just want to be a good father. That's going to block out all of the things that you're doing well right now, which is plenty,
Probably,
uh,
yeah.
make you feel like shit,
Mhm.
and then make it hard for you to pinpoint what good would be. Like I said, it's a bad metric.
Yeah.
I want to be an even more fun father.
Yeah.
Now, that gives me credit for all the fun, the things I'm doing well right now, which is that's the foundation of what you got, what you're already doing well right now. And then you can build upon that. Oh, guess what? It's also known as momentum. Well, if I'm already doing this now, then, camping 2 weeks from now, let's just go ahead and get that on the calendar. And it makes you action prone.
Right.
The other one
Yeah.
makes you inaction prone.
It makes so much sense, and it's so simple. People, I think, are looking for this miraculous. I mean, the people that come to our events, they understand that the formula needs to change. Like the
Yeah.
foundation of our work is the formula just doesn't work. It's not that you're wrong or you're bad. It's just that with your programming, your language, your mindset, your beliefs, that formula no longer works to get you a certain result that you're looking for. It got you the result as to what you have today. Yet you don't have the result you truly want or desire. So we just have to tweak the formula. That's all. We've got to figure out what's going on. We've got to eliminate some shit. We got to calibrate in some new stuff, and then acceleration happens. Our formula is eliminate or illuminate, eliminate, calibrate, accelerate. Acceleration happens naturally when the other three pieces of the formula are dialed in and serving of you, right? You listen to that language, not right, not wrong. They're serving of where you're going. They're, aligned. Then it happens. What's really interesting is,
That's a good formula, by the way. That's simple.
thank you. Thank you. I've been working on that for a long time because remember, I'm not good at math and I'm not a good test taker, according to the language of my mom, who's just trying to protect me. So I figured out that I loved math when it was formulaic and when it actually did something for me. And by the way, any mathematicians listening to this or anybody that loves math, don't get weird. It's not that I don't like math. It's just that algebra or, calculus and shit like that, it doesn't work in my world. Not in a crazy ADD, massively defiant coach's world. It works in formulaic sense. And I love that. And I go, you know what? There's not unlimited. There's unlimited variables, yes, and I can control them in a formula. And if I can control them for me, I can help someone else control them so that they don't think that it's just out there in the wilderness somewhere that they're going to find an answer. Let's find an answer through this formula. Stay right in this box. Stay right here. So that's super cool. What's interesting is the same thing happened years ago. I said to a mentor, I just want to stick with shit, man. I just want to follow through. I just want to stick with shit. And he's like, what does that mean? And I said, I want to stick with things. I don't stick with things. And he goes, who programmed you on that one? And I said, my mom told me that I like to quit things and try other things. And he goes, why isn't that a good thing? And I said, well, I think it is. For some reason, it seemed to not be. And he goes, let's pop your theory balloon right now. Let's figure out 10 really important things that you have stuck with and not quit. And I was like, oh, I think I know where this is going. So in that language, I was severely defeating, right, myself, severely victim language. Oh, poor me. I don't stick with anything. I'm such a loser. I'm such a victim. When in fact, I've had the same car, house, wife, children, like I stuck with a lot of stuff, business, stuck with a lot of stuff. And as we started to mount that evidence, my story started to change. And so that's one of the biggest things that I teach people is, and I'm sure you do too, like there has to be evidence that outweighs the stupid story you're telling yourself, right? We call it the crazy theory. Put your crazy theory out. I'm not good enough. I don't stick with things. I'm not a good father. And then jack in the real evidence. The real evidence. Like if you're beating your kids, you put that as evidence. Yet if you're just not coming home on time to get them to bed and you want to be a better father, that's not real evidence. That's like the next step. You now know you need to change that as a metric, right? Would you agree with that, Mark? Like, just it's a metric. So if you know that you're registering as not a good father because you'd like to come home and put them to bed and do dinner, then now you just change the metric, which means you change your schedule, which means you change your understanding of what you need to do that day and what's important to you. If that other thing is now more important in your world, that's a formula. Change the first two things, they equal a little bit here. Change the way you have to, leave your office, or you don't take clients at 7 p.m. You drive home a little earlier for traffic, and now you are home, which equals, and I feel it like I am a better dad. I'm being a better dad because that metric is now being hit. Simple, right? Simple enough.
Formulaic. I mean, you said it. You know, uh, a couple tweaks here, change some stories there. What you're taught when you said, your mom said you're not good in math. My mind went straight to John Kirschmeyer,
Hmm.
who owned Quagmires, which was the super coolest uh, uh, restaurant on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And I remember this like it was yesterday. Went up into his office after a shift to see where he was going, what party he was going to afterwards, and he's sitting there counting a fat stack of cash. And
Yeah.
I asked him, and he looked up at me, and he goes, I was never good at math, but I can count a stack of fucking 20s. And I was
I
like,
love it, man.
dude,
Yeah. Well,
simple.
what's the context though of not good at math? Right? What's the context? So the context is somebody says not good at math, and the context is massive.
Yeah. Is it algebra? Is it trigonometry? Is it geometry? Is it simple addition? Is it
Right.
is it your taxes? Like uh, there's a lot that math covers. For him, I would imagine ninth grade through 12th grade math, which
Yeah.
I didn't give a shit about that either. I was
Me
horrible at
neither.
that.
Me neither. I just couldn't see. I couldn't see where it applied to my life as I envisioned it for the future.
Mm,
And my teachers in high school seemed to want to put a story in my head like, if
you
you
need
don't
this.
take this seriously, you'll be a loser forever.
One of my math teachers in high school said, you need to learn this because you're not going to walk around with a calculator in your pocket. Hardy
Right.
har har, woman. Yes,
Right.
I am.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. It's funny how many people are bad at math. Like when I was in real estate, when they could calculate that commission like it was nothing, no calculator needed, and you
Dude,
couldn't. They couldn't do math to get themselves out of like to save their life. They could calculate commission very
because it
easily.
meant something to them. There
That
was
was something at
skin in the
stake.
game. There was
Yeah,
something at
something at stake.
stake. So the same thing with my dad. Like he would remember the the percentage on a loan and what month it was signed any year that you asked him about any of his properties.
Interesting.
You know,
Yeah,
that guy barely got out of school.
I mean that's true for so many people. I want the audience to not take this episode lightly. This is what runs your life most of the time, and that's not a story I'm telling you. That's backed by
Just
evidence.
you can Google that one, folks. Or don't even Google it. You just trust him. He's right. Listen, the
Yeah,
story that you tell yourself to yourself about yourself is one of the very most powerful forces in your life. Go ahead and Google that.
yeah,
And I mean, to say that it's it's not consistent. It's constant. It's relentless. It's usually how people recognize they're awake. You know, it's not like you get up and take a piss and drink some water and then you start thinking. No, it starts. You start registering words before your eyeballs are open, and it's usually the last thing that you register before you go to sleep. And guess what? It's ticker taping the whole way through your day, and that's just in
true.
your head. And circle back to something that you said. People with my problems are so big. It's it's very easy to fall into the trap thinking that the solution to our problems, which we're very good at making big and huge, uh, that the solution to these big, huge problems is equally as big and huge when actually, no, most of the time it's a tweak to the formula, leaving work an hour earlier, not taking
Yeah,
clients at 7, and making these small fine tuning adjustments to put you in better and better position. And then you dial it
yeah,
in like artillery.
yeah.
Okay.
Little bit of time, little bit, little bit,
Yeah.
little bit, little bit. Yeah. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. The reason why our coaching business and our curriculum is so successful, not only in its effectiveness during a coaching session, in its sustainability after the coaching session, is because it's it's not about big giant leaps. It's about small little tweaks that don't have emotion locked into them. You don't feel like this is the way to do it today or feel like this is the way. It's very logical. If you want to spend more time with if you want an hour more with your kids at night and you feel that that will make you a better father, you think that'll make you a better father or a more fun father, whatever it might be, then logically you have to buy an hour back. You can't feel like buying an hour back and then feel like you didn't do it and then feel like it couldn't happen, then feel like a failure. That's the story. You take action and you go and find an hour, use your words, communicate with your boss, communicate with your wife, communicate with your neighbor who bugs you every time you get home and wants to talk because they have nothing going on. Like, and then you find the hour and then you become the person or evolve into the person that says, holy shit, I now could find the hour. I'm empowered. My kids just got another hour of me. I'm a better father. Repeat tomorrow. Oh, that formula works. It's so simple. Yet everybody that we, not everybody, the majority of people that we come across are so emotionally driven from the fucking, like you're saying, the moment their eyes open, here we go again. Oh, it's fucking raining out. Get ready for this day. Like that's how a lot of people start their day. Don't talk to me until I have coffee is a fucking story. It's a story. Like, think about it. Dude, we need to do another episode where we just name stories that people run their life by and then just let the audience just like be called to it.
I'm easy to get on a podcast, bro.
We're gonna book another one. We're gonna book
Okay.
another one. Yeah. So, dude, we're an hour 12 minutes. We gotta wrap. You and we could shoot the shit all day.
Yeah, we
This
could.
was fun. This was a lot of
Very.
fun. I love where your mindset's at. I love our
Likewise.
the abracadabra, mix and similarity. Um, yeah, it's cool, man. It it confirms for me is the way I let my Raz run for podcast guests. Like
Mm.
I get 50 requests a week and I only take like 2. Is is I trust my gut reaction when I read a one sheet. I give 5. By the way, for anybody trying to get on this podcast or anybody else, I give 5 seconds to a one sheet. If there's not something on there that catches my attention that I know my audience will associate with growth or like something that they need, it's gone. Like, it's that fast. And I get 100 a week. You get 5 seconds. And yours, it was very quick, very, very quick. And so that's how I don't tell my story about how if I get rid of this one, what if the audience would want that? I trust my gut. It's very rarely wrong.
It's that Malcolm Gladwell blink shit.
Yeah. 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 It really is. It really is. So, dude, this has been great. I really like that game. I think I might incorporate that into some of my
Dude, take
trainings.
it.
It's
Take it.
really great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take it.
Where can people find you?
At Enlifted Coaches on Instagram. We run a certification. So we certify coaches in how to dismantle the victim mentality. It's very niche. The website for that is enlifted.me. And we've got a podcast, which I do not host it. So I'm one of the co-founders of Enlifted,
Yeah.
and the head coach of Enlifted. I deliver all the certifications, all the trainings, all that stuff. Our podcast is called Get Enlifted, the Get Enlifted podcast. It's for coaches, um, and we focus, as you can imagine, a lot on the words and the stories and strategies. Uh, Kimberly, our former community manager, she runs that. I'm going to pitch you to come on there because that would be a
Please.
fantastic interview if you're available.
Of
Those are 3
course.
places. So Instagram, the website, and our podcast.
Enlifted.me.
Yeah.
Got it. Sweet, man. And the podcast, tell me the podcast getting lifted. I just blanked on it.
Yeah, getting lifted. You got it.
Getting lifted, right. All right. Mark England, this has been fun, man. Great meeting you.
Dude, it has,
Love
man.
the synergy. And
Right?
let's figure out what else we can do together.
I was thinking the same thing, man. Next time I'm in SoCal, I'm gonna track you down, bro.
Please.
Take you out.
I do. I know you will
Get some
track me
coffee.
down. I'll see you walking up my drive here and go, what the fuck? That guy really did track me down. I love it.
Nectarine Grove, Encinitas.
Okay. When is that?
Fantastic restaurant. Our
Oh,
next
oh,
trip to
oh, I thought it was an
SoCal.
event. Oh, Nectarine Grove, the restaurant. Got it.
Yeah. They've got the
Encinitas.
goods going on there.
Encinitas. Oh, down San Diego and like down south.
Oh, pardon me. You said Los Angeles. Oh,
Yeah, I'm in
Venice.
LA. Yeah.
I lived on the canals for a year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, dude. I'm like my hat says Dogtown, Venice. Death to
Nice.
invaders.
Love it.
Love this fucking hat,
You're the real deal. You are the real deal.
man. We all have our moments.
All right, brother. This has been awesome, man. Let me well, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Really
Dude, my
appreciate it.
pleasure. Great way to round out the week.
Yeah.
Kick-ass podcast. And I'll just go ahead and say this. Everybody listen to Ian, because the guy knows his angles and he knows his stuff. I'm a snob when it comes to coaching and coaching. We'll just call it curriculum perspectives, and I already know that you get fantastic results for your clients.
We do, man. I'm very
Yeah,
proud of that. Really fulfilling
as you
for
should
us.
be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Really kind words that I don't take lightly.
Yeah.
That story, I'll take it all. I'll take it right
Dude,
in.
there's stories you want. There's stories we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Mark, thank you. Audience, thank you. If you stuck it out this far, thank you. And make sure you hit us with a 5-star review if you like this podcast. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen. And then we'll catch you on the next one.